Listen!
Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and this time we are talking about the meaning of the Tears of the Kingdom logo in hindsight. And when I say in hindsight, I mean that we are taking another look at the meaning of this logo after having played the game, because a few months before Tears of the Kingdom came out, we theorized on what the meaning of the logo was. So how close were my theories to reality? That's part of what we're going to be talking about today, but I'll also be going into how my thoughts have evolved since then, since having played Tears of the Kingdom. Is there anything else I noticed about the story and the gameplay that relate to the logo? Yes, there is. But before going further, let me point out a couple things. One, we are going to have to talk about the story of this game, so there will be spoilers in this video, you have been warned. But also, we are still aiming to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. With your help, it just might be possible. Now, taking a look at the different things I thought the logo could be hinting at here, one of them was an importance to the Zonai. Why? Because it was showing off the dragons, and we know that the dragons were worshipped by the Zonai, and that turned out to be totally correct. The Zonai are a very important piece to the overall story in Tears of the Kingdom. The original king of Hyrule is Rauru, a Zonai. There is Zonai architecture and magic and all of that all throughout the game. They are very much important. But going beyond that, we also thought that there would be some sort of effort to restore and power up the Master Sword. We see the destroyed Master Sword in the logo, but there's an additional green-like energy blade to it, and that part we were also correct on. The Master Sword is destroyed in battle against Ganondorf in the beginning of the game, but when Zelda goes back in time, eventually Link is able to send the Master Sword back in time to her, and over the course of thousands and thousands of years, Princess Zelda is able to use her light powers to restore the Master Sword and make it stronger than ever before in order to defeat Ganondorf. So we were correct on that part. But something else that I thought the logo could be representing is potentially something having to do with time. Now, this wasn't just my idea, and I would actually argue I was leaning away from this idea somewhat, because what a lot of people were assuming about the logo was that it was an oroboros, and the thing about an oroboros is that it's a symbol we've seen throughout the history of mankind that is meant to represent eternity, or the renewing of a cycle. It's depicted with a snake or serpent going in a circle eating itself. And the distinction I made a few months ago, before we knew about all the details of Tears of the Kingdom, was that this logo is two dragons rotating about each other, seemingly with their mouths closed, not necessarily eating each other. So what I felt was that the logo isn't for sure suggesting a renewing of a cycle or an eternity, at least not necessarily being the main focus. But considering what we know of Tears of the Kingdom now, there doesn't appear to be a renewing of a cycle, but we do know that the eternal dragons can live on eternally, immortality. So this idea that an Ouroboros can represent immortality or eternity, and it's using dragons to do so, and we have the eternal dragons, which are also the servants of the springs, but there's also a few others as well. I think there is definitely a significance to this Ouroboros-like design. I don't want to call it an Ouroboros itself, but it's definitely similar, and it seems there is purpose there. I mean, even the fact that the memories take place during the era of the founding of Hyrule, and Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom take place at the very end of the timeline, or the latest part in the timeline. So there are thousands and thousands of years that transpire between all these story events of Tears of the Kingdom. Point being that this idea of time being related in a vast expanse of time, that I think we were touching upon, although not totally close to. But something else I'll add now that I think kind of adds to the meaning of this passing of time is that the dragons are going about in a circle, almost like a clock, perhaps suggesting the passing of time. But because it's very Ouroboros-like and you have the two different dragons, it's also hinting at this long expanse of time with the immortal dragons. So there is something to this idea. And something else I considered at the time was that maybe there was a hint towards a expanded role to Princess Zelda. She would play something more significant to the overall story and gameplay to the game. I was considering even the possibility of her being playable, which did not happen, but she does play a more active role with the story in Tears of the Kingdom now. She's very important throughout the memories, but there are also interactions and story beats and details throughout our main journey in the present time centered around Zelda, or at least about Princess Zelda. And then in the end of the game, she plays a pivotal role, even more significant than in Breath of the Wild. She does become the Light Dragon. She is the reason the Master Sword is restored. This is how Link is able to obtain the Master Sword in order to defeat Ganondorf, because she is the Light Dragon. But also, as the Light Dragon, she fights alongside Link to defeat Ganondorf, who has become the Demon Dragon. So I think we were very close when it came to an increased role for Princess Zelda. But something new that's very interesting here is that there was a battle and exchange between two different dragons at the end of the game. The Light Dragon being Princess Zelda, and the Demon Dragon being Ganondorf. They were battling each other. Of course, the Light Dragon was working with Link, but there was this battle that happened at the end of the game that you could say was hinted at by the logo itself. But something else I felt was being hinted at was this romance. You see, I initially interpreted that the two dragons were possibly a depiction of Link and Zelda, because ultimately I thought that Tears of the Kingdom would be demonstrating an increased role of both Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf, bringing in the Triforce, this story beat from prior Zelda games, into this one. And the Triforce, at least on a surface level, is not really prevalent, so I guess I would say I was wrong on that part. But while I'll say I was wrong on the dragons potentially hinting at this romance between Link and Zelda, I do think Tears of the Kingdom very much strengthened the idea that there was a romance between them. Now, there are certainly debates on this. I've already made multiple videos about this potential romance. I believe they are living together, or were living together before the events of Tears of the Kingdom. I think Zelda is speaking very highly of Link in a romantic-like way to Queen Sonia and King Rauru, and they are taking on a parental-like role and taking an interest in Zelda's love life. And I think the way Link saves Zelda at the very end, where he's diving for her and he catches her, is very much a romantic moment. Considering all the things in Breath of the Wild, including information that tells us that Zelda was in love with Link, I personally think it's very much clear. And I'll also throw out that we do see these doors where there are dragons kissing each other. I am not quite sure what this would be suggesting. Before the game came out, I thought this was a hint towards Link and Zelda. Now I'm not so sure. Maybe there isn't any crazy meaning behind this particular set of doors with the dragon aiming upwards, but it could be hinting at simply to this idea that there are dragons in the sky going upwards, the importance of the eternal dragons. But keeping this idea of the dragons going upwards in mind, something that I thought was being depicted by the logo, and perhaps the most important interpretation of what the logo represents, is the journey. It's meant to imply the overall journey. While at the time I was entertaining the idea that maybe there might be underwater exploration or expanded sky exploration, perhaps to the point where it almost looks like space, ultimately I believed that there was going to be importance between exploring the skies, the surface, and also the depths, which at the time was unconfirmed information that there was quite a bit of debate about. And after having played through Tears of the Kingdom, I do very much believe that it is all about this journey. I think the dragons rotating about each other, going up and down, is meant to hint towards this gameplay loop of going up into the skies, back to the surface, and down to the depths, and then back up again. I do think having this Zonai symbolism of the dragons is meant to hint the importance of the Zonai overall to the story. With everything that King Rauru and Queen Sonia and Mineru did to set everything up for the future, with all the shrines and the light roots and raising the Great Sky Island in there, it was all very much important. Zelda having this plan of becoming an eternal light dragon to restore and power up the Master Sword over thousands of years so it can eventually make it to Link, that's part of the meaning, this passage of time. This depiction of two dragons rounding about each other, hinting at the importance of dragons, but maybe also ultimately the final battle between Link and the Light Dragon versus the Demon Dragon. I think all of this is hinted at by the logo. And also, now that we know that The Tears of the Kingdom are the Tears of the Light Dragon, the memories of Princess Zelda that tell of the sadness and events of the past. It is very symbolic, and it all fits perfectly. And just looking at the logo now with everything we now know, it's a fantastic logo. It says so much, but in a way that isn't entirely obvious until you play the game. And I would say the logo and name for Tears of the Kingdom tell us a lot more about Tears of the Kingdom than other logos have done for prior Zelda games. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.